listening to Out Late with David. True stories of coming out later in life. And now here's your host, David Cotton.
Raised as a Latter-day Saint, and even though straight herself, today's guest found her life becoming deeply intertwined with the LGBTQ plus community. For sure, a strong community ally, she's immersed herself into research about the hows and whys of the coming out process and hopefully helping to make it more smooth for the person and their friends and family. Joining us today from Houston, Texas, Cammie Hunley-Jackson. Hi, Cammie, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad you're here today, and thanks for taking the time. You've written a research study about coming out later in life. It's called Understanding the Journey, Why Some Gay Individuals Suppress Their Identity. But before we talk about that, I want to know, why is it important that this topic for you? You know, I'd enjoy hearing about your own personal story of why you have the interest.
Well, two of my children are gay, and also my brother, and they're out openly, so it's okay to say that. I found myself immersed in religion and had a very difficult time with my son coming out in the beginning, and feel quite embarrassed about it. But as I continued to process and accept and slowly become an ally, I realized that I needed to search my own heart and figure out what this really means to me. And then my daughter, and then my brother. So I've had three very significant coming out experiences of people that I love dearly. So having all three of those has pushed me in a direction I never thought I'd be in, which was to understand and appreciate the point of view of an LGBTQ person and their journey of coming out, whether it be when they're a teen or whether they're an older person who's already been in a marriage, heterosexual marriage.
Mm-hmm. With your son, you said you had some difficulty with that yourself. How did that feel as a mom?
Well, it felt awful. You feel torn between what you've been raised to believe versus how you truly feel about your child. So it becomes a juxtaposition of feelings. And in the end, after you process, which sometimes takes years, it almost feels like you have to make a decision. Do you continue down the path of being religious, or do you choose your child? For me, that is what it came down to.
What was the decision then that you actually made when you get to that point? What's the kind of the act or something that spurred you on?
I knew I was at church one Sunday, and I knew at a particular moment that I would not return. And it was very painful because it was so much part of my life, but I knew that I could no longer support organized religion that does not fully accept my children and my family.
Yeah, the love of a mother over the situation that they're in is what it sounds like. When he came out, since you're in the church environment, I assume as a family,
right?
Was there interaction there that was supportive of him, or what kind of environment would that have been for him, and then ultimately for you and the family?
Well, he's in his 30s, so back then it was mostly hush hush. Don't really talk about it. But for my other family members, it was more accepting.
Was it later in life for them, or further away?
Yes, and it was more recent.
Did you see there were resources for the individual or the family at that time?
I sought out resources online through social media. There's a particular group called the Mama Dragons, which I joined and have been with
a powerful name.
for many years. Yes. And just to be a part of it and to read stories and engage with other women that were going through the same thing. Back then, it was very specific Latter-day Saint women and some men as well. But since then, it has expanded to include any religion or any person that wants to be part of the group.
It's called Mama Dragon still?
They most recently went private. They have a pretty strong vetting system now, and you are connected through email.
Okay. Your son comes out, you go through that process with him, and then you said your daughter as well?
Mm-hmm.
Did you act or were you differently when she came out based on the experience you'd had with him? Or?
I did. I acted differently.
How so?
She was in therapy for anxiety, and she invited me to come to the session. And I had no clue. I thought, I'm divorced. I thought she was going to tell me she wanted to live with her dad. But she came out, and I said, I said, thank God. I thought you were going to want to live with your dad. And everything was just very, very positive.
Wonderful.
That time around.
Why do you credit yourself for acting differently in that way as compared to kind of, you didn't say shock and disbelief, but I guess kind of being surprised?
I was surprised, but I had grown so much because of my son, because he is considerably older. So I had time to really embrace how I felt about it.
Good.
And that they're the same person.
Yeah,
Same
they don't
person.
change.
Yeah.
You just know more about them.
Right.
That's why when people talk about coming out, there's a phrase letting in.
Right.
I believe Dr. Lauren Orlson is where I heard it for the first time about, letting people into your life. You're not coming out to them. That person's so special to you, you let them in. Therefore, you don't have to stand on the street corner and say, I'm gay, unless it serves you for whatever purpose, but you don't have to do that. So in your own personal life, beyond your family, and then you said your brother came out too, but were there any other things in your life that had you intersect with the LGBTQ plus community, or was it primarily family interaction?
Well, I was a drama teacher. I still am, actually, a drama teacher for 26 years full time. And in the theater community, there tends to be a little bit more of an acceptance of the LGBTQ community. They're more open in the theatrical world, and we're more accepting, I think, because we are deeply feeling people. And when it comes to acting and creativity, we go to parts of ourselves that not everybody normally goes to. So I really like that aspect of the theater world. Had many students come out to me, which was
Sweet.
in Texas a little bit scary, because the protocol is to make sure that the parents are included, but of course we're not going to do that. We're not going to tell a parent that, because that story is for the child or the student to tell their parents, not us.
So you're a teacher, a parent, intersection with the community, ally for sure, based on what I know of you. And then you go off and write the study. What came out of the reason to write this study, and what did you intend to do in that?
Well, my brother, when he came out, was married to my sister-in-law, who I adore dearly, and I still communicate with her. When my brother came out to me on the phone, I told him, thank you so much for telling me. So that was my third coming out experience. And I was in a interpersonal conflict class studying for my master's degree. And we were allowed to pick our topic. And they encouraged us to pick a topic that we felt passionate about. So after a long consideration, I thought, how communication studies is a little bit different than communications. Communication studies focuses on the interpersonal exchange of conflict resolution or how you behave in a romantic relationship. So I was very interested in how my brother and his wife were able to transition through that experience with their two daughters in an amicable way. Mostly, there was still conflict, but so after the interviews that I had conducted, I noticed some major findings about the men that were able to have amicable separations and divorces versus those that didn't. And religion was one of the main components. People that were not religious were able to communicate better, which I thought was very interesting.
Yes, it is.
And I think I'm going to continue my research in that area.
I get a lot of clients and anecdotal stories where religion intersects and is the challenge the person's individual struggle, or when they come out to somebody else, how they think they're going to react because of that individual's religious perspective.
Right.
Is that what you found, or?
It ranged from men who were not forced, but to save the marriage went into conversion therapy with a Christian-based counselor, all the way to pure acceptance from the beginning from their wives. Some came home to locked doors with the locks had been changed. So it was there were 16 men. So it ranged from so many different perspectives. But like I said, after doing, it's called constant comparative analysis, after reading and rereading the interview transcripts over and over again, I started to find the connections, which is the research. Those that were able to communicate better were not actively religious. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yes. And how did they communicate when you say they communicate?
They went through a process. They analyzed options. Do we want to stay married? Do we want an open relationship? They really went through what would be best for the kids, what would be best for us. And even one of the men, they decided to rent an apartment right near where they were living. So their kids would never left the house, and they would take turns going in and out of the apartment. 1 week it would be the husband and the other week would be the wife. But the kids were the main focus. So I was so impressed with how they were able to come to an understanding of what was the most important things in their lives and how could they maintain being a family. That was so important. And then on the opposite end, families have been absolutely destroyed, and the kids have not even spoken to the parent that came out.
I know of one situation where he lost everything, left with 2 carry-ons, a backpack, and a cup of coffee. I really like the example that you gave where they got an apartment. I thought you were going to say for the guy to move into, but be close to home, instead of the former spouses rotated through the apartment to always keep the kids in the house. So they were the focus of the living environment, not
amazing.
They had to shift back and forth between mom and dad. I just love that.
And how many people can actually say, I'm strong enough to do that because my kids matter. the most.
Did they have any, the people you interviewed, I think they're all men, if I recall?
Yes.
Did they have any common threads on the spouses that were very open and supportive that came through, other than the not very religious?
If I remember correctly, two of them, the spouse, the woman, were highly educated. And I know one for sure was trained as a therapist. That's the only common thread I can think of right now.
As a life coach, I'm committed to help you discover the passions in your life and help you map a course to achieve the things you really want. Together, we will unwind those persistent self-doubts that are holding you back. You'll begin to see your passions more clearly and set achievable goals. Throughout your journey, I'll be there to challenge and encourage you in moving forward to discover your authentic self. For more information about my personal life coaching services, or to arrange a complimentary consultation, visit davidcottoncoaching.com.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
Were there any surprises that came up during this study of these participants? Or just your research that you used to correlate the information as well?
You know, I expected mental health issues. I expected suicide ideation, but I didn't expect it from every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was heartbreaking. And there were a couple of times that I, after the interview, broke down and cried for a while because it was just so sad. It seemed unnecessary, and it seemed like some of the pain could have been avoided.
Good.
I'm not sure how. That's kind of what my research is. Yeah. How do we improve that for our kids that are coming out now?
Yeah, I can speak from personal experience and talking to others as well, is that for me, it was all locked inside my head. Didn't know what to do with it and feel like there's no hope. While I wasn't ever got to the point to kill myself directly, I did have wishful thoughts of either not to wake up or have the semi hit me on the way to work and just be done with it. And I was just let somebody else make the decision.
There were several interviews.
There's no solution at all.
Several interviews that said the same thing that you just mentioned, that hoped for some kind of accident, some kind of way out without having to do it themselves. I
found one thing fascinating too, and it took me to Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Mm-hmm. That the mirror came to be as part of the process. Explain what you found out about the mirror.
Yes, I think there were four out of 16 that actually verbally said, I had to look in the mirror and say, you're gay. I'm a gay man. Had to look at themselves and say it, which I thought was really interesting. That they had to come to the conclusion of self-acceptance before they were able to move on.
Did that help them be more communicative with their spouse and family members after that point?
Not necessarily.
I think so. You just had to own it, at least at some level.
I think it was more of a validation, as this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to be from now on. That's what I got. That's what I gained from it.
That's interesting, because the feedback from other things I've read and observed is that the straight spouse or straight partner has the opposite feeling at the time, that the person's being very selfish and not caring and not loving by only focusing on themselves and coming out and sharing their secret, which is tormenting them, almost to the point of suicide or desperation.
And that is why they don't come out sooner, because they are afraid of risking hurting others, risking their family, risking losing touch with their children.
what's the next step for your study?
I am going to look into religion. And because there were so many, 13 out of 16, who identified a specific religion, and how those messages that are received in the walls of our churches and congregations, how those affect our young people who are gay or struggling to figure themselves out, their identity out. How can we prevent the mental health crisis of those young people before they get involved in a heterosexual marriage and continue on for years and years and years of self-loathing, is how my brother described it, just for years.
So what advice would you have for that straight partner or straight family member that has someone come out to them, or if they have maybe even concerns, but someone might be LGBTQ plus?
Several of the spouses actually outed their husbands, which was very hurtful because, according to the research I've discovered, the coming out process is so significant that it's really not someone else's story to share. It's the person themselves. And they feel robbed of that experience if someone outs them. So my advice would be to feel honored that they would share it with you. Because it's such a difficult thing to share. To create a safe space where any kind of communication can take place, especially if you're a parent or in a romantic relationship where you're supposed to be trusting and you have a good friendship. If that exists, then you need to allow yourself the opportunity to listen and accept.
So what advice would you have for the individual who is coming out or letting others into their life based on what you learn from engaging with these study participants?
Don't be afraid. I don't want to cry. But my daughter was so afraid to tell me. And that I would feel differently about her.
Yeah.
So.
Probably lose connection.
Yes.
And that was my fear, lose connection with family, friends, and people they don't even know.
Right. They think, how will my coworkers think of me now? How will this, how does it all work out? People can be amazing. There was an example in one of the interviews where the people that they thought would accept them didn't. And the people that they thought would not accept them accepted them. And people are surprising in that way sometimes.
And I always tell folks, be patient too. If you have one of those situations where someone's not accepting and supportive and you want to have a relationship with them, honor them by respecting whatever boundaries they put up. You don't have to agree with them, honor them. And then over time, through your behavior, they might come back and re-engage with you after they have a time to think and process it.
Some of the research I discovered was that a parent needs about 3 to 5 years to fully accept.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true. I didn't need that much time. But, and then how long it takes for someone to figure out their identity can be years and years and years longer than that to accept.
It's to accept too, because they may know their identity, but have not accepted it. Or actually maybe looked in the mirror and had that conversation with themselves.
Right. But in the end, what is more important? Love and your relationships with your family and the people that you love.
And yourself.
And yes.
And yourself. Because you can't help others if you're not all right yourself. Your cup has to be over half full to pour it into somebody else's.
Right.
So what did we not talk about today anything else you want to highlight that we missed?
I don't know why I want to say this, but I'll say it anyway. If you discover yourself, if you're watching this and you are an individual who is struggling to come out or is in a relationship that you don't want to be in, that there is a way to sift through some of these problems in a proactive way. I was really impressed with one of the men that I interviewed. He actually came up with a plan of how he was going to do these things and talk to who at what point and that sort of thing. My brother, his therapist suggested he tell his siblings first, one at a time, so he could have that support first before going to the parents. So there's a lot of material out there that you can search for that will help you. And Facebook groups and other groups, your podcast and the things that you have on your website, that it's okay to search and study and get prepared for what will happen.
I like that. Yeah, on the outlaywithdavid.com website, under the resource page, there's a really good guide to coming out to a straight partner or spouse, but it can apply to a family. It highlights things such as what safe space is the person who's straight you're coming out to. Think about them and what you tell them. You don't want to pull them into the closet with you.
Right.
But let them know it's okay. This is a lot to process. It's okay to talk to your friend, family, whomever. Give them license to process it as well. The person coming out's had time. The other one may not have had the same amount of time.
Right.
More than likely has not to figure that out. So to your point.
But it doesn't have to be this huge tragedy.
No, it's really not. It's actually a joyful activity because the person's accepting themselves and letting you into their life because they care about you is to me, the foundational thought. And if someone is feeling depressed, suicidal, 988 on your phone is the national hotline. Just dial 988 and that can get you to someone that you can talk to if you get to that point. So you're not alone. Well, thank you for spending this time today, and thank you for being such a supportive ally and your passion and your desire to understand this better, to then put together something to share for others. I really, really appreciate that, and I'm sure others will too. I wish you luck on getting published.
Thank you.
And looking forward to your next level when you get into religion. That fascinates me because, as you pointed out, religion is a major factor, and some people, what keeps them from moving forward in fear and concern about their future and that of her family and loved ones. So thank you again for your time today.
I will say real quick, there are religions that are becoming very inclusive. So it's not all bad.
No, they are changing.
Yes.
So thank you. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
To hear more episodes, visit outlatewithdavid.com. And to learn more about personal life coaching services, go to davidcottoncoaching.com.